It was a Thursday night, and I was away with my team up in the north of Vietnam in Hanoi. Jodi rang me and said she had abdominal pain and she didn't really know what it was. But at age 39, she was fit, healthy. The GP very quickly recognised that there was a block in Jodi's bowel. Those scans came back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 11 o'clock that same night, an ambulance turns it up at our house, and Jodi's taken to Ho Chi Minh Airport, where she's airlifted at low level to Bangkok for emergency surgery.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Finding Equilibrium show. I'm delighted to be here, delighted you're here, and delighted that my guest today is Nick Lee. Nick is the founder and chair of the Jodi Lee Foundation and is also the director of Healthy Minds. So it's a real honor to have you with us today. And first of all, I should say congratulations for getting the Order of Australia medal, which is a huge achievement. You must be very proud.
Yeah, I was absolutely thrilled, Lawrence. Good morning. And yeah, it's, I guess, recognition of a lot of people who have contributed to the Jodi Lee Foundation over the 12 years that we've been operating, and most importantly, we've had a really important impact. So obviously you don't do it for that reason, but lovely to get the recognition.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So maybe for people who aren't familiar with your work, I'd love you to take us back and tell us how you came to set up the foundation in the first place, like what happened and what really, I guess, started you on this journey to what you describe as a more purposeful life.
Yeah, well, it was going back 12 years ago, in 2000, actually longer than that, 2006, I was a director at Unilever and got moved to Vietnam with my family. I had my wife, Jodi, who is a special needs teacher, and my two young kids, Jack and Arabella. So Jack was 4 when we moved and Arabella was 2. And Unilever have a big business over there. I was running their modern trade business as a director and based in Ho Chi Minh City, and really life couldn't have been any better. I don't know if you've traveled to Vietnam, but it's a wonderful place, beautiful people. We were having the time of our lives. Jodi was teaching at the international school, and it was a Thursday night, and I was away with my team up in the north of Vietnam in Hanoi. We were based in Ho Chi Minh City. And Jodi rang me and said she had abdominal pain and she didn't really know what it was. But at age 39, she was fit, healthy. She didn't have any family history. Bowel cancer certainly wasn't on my radar. I thought it was an older man's disease. So I wasn't particularly concerned, but suggested that she go off to see the GP the next day, which she did. The GP very quickly recognised that there was a block in Jodi's bowel. She ordered scans. Those scans came back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 11 o'clock that same night, the kids are still fast asleep. I'm away with my team in Hanoi. An ambulance turns it up at our house, and Jodi's taken to Ho Chi Minh Airport, where she's airlifted at low level to Bangkok for emergency surgery. Because what those scans showed was a tumour had almost entirely blocked her bowel, and they were worried if they flew her at normal altitude that she might burst her bowel. And that's one of the issues with bowel cancer. Often it doesn't throw up the early warning signs like you might get with many other diseases. They call it the silent killer for that reason. I raced to be with Jodi for the surgery in Bangkok, which went very well. They removed a piece of Jodi's colon about so long to remove the tumour. But 3 days after that, a specialist came to see us. And it was quite bizarre because Bumangrat Hospital is a big hospital in Bangkok. And right at the main reception area, a lot of people coming to and from and asking different questions. This chap sits down to go through Jodi's prognosis. And very shortly into the conversation, Jodi started to feel a bit faint and went up to her room. I was left there with the specialist, and a lot of medical speak before the obvious question was, well, what does all that mean? And he said that the cancer had spread to her lymph and her liver. It was stage 4 bowel cancer, and at best she had 2 years to live. So you can imagine how that news hit me like a sledgehammer. And I'll never forget going up to Jodi's room and sticking my hand on the door handle and thinking, what the hell am I going to say to her? How do you tell someone you love that at best they've got 2 years to live? I wandered into the room, decided that sharing the time frame wasn't going to be very helpful for Jodi, but said we need to get back to South Australia where both of our families live to commence treatment, which we did. And that time was particularly tough on all of us, but Jodi had a lot of evasive treatment. She had 3 major abdominal operations. She had multiple rounds of chemo. She had a treatment called radiospheres. We tried absolutely everything and realised in August 2009 that we'd run out of options. And we did what I hope will be the hardest thing that I ever have to do in my life, and that's to tell our 2 young kids that their mum was going to die. And we didn't want to scare them, but we wanted to give them an opportunity to talk to us about what was on their mind. At that point, we thought Jodi had about 12 months to live. But unfortunately, in January 2010, shortly after that conversation, Jodi passed away just before her 42nd birthday from the bowel cancer. And it's sort of, I guess, a bit hard to describe this overwhelming compulsion that I had, that I wanted to do everything that I possibly could to prevent others going through what we went through. And I didn't have a medical background to be able to contribute to coming up with a cure, but I did have a background in sales and marketing, and had spent 9 years with Unilever as a director, focusing very much on the purposes of our business and the purpose of our brands. And so I felt like if I could just convince a number of people to protect themselves against this very preventable but prevalent disease, then had an opportunity to make a difference. And we've saved so many lives over the last 12 years. We've helped people make more positive choices around their health. And, I've been very fulfilled by having this sense of purpose and living a more purposeful life and being able to contribute to, the health and well-being of so many people over that time. So it really has been an incredible journey, but, certainly born out of heartache and a lot of grief that transpired. So, yeah, that's, I guess, a little bit of my background and what's set me on this path.
Sure, and I thank you, Nick, for sharing that with me. And I'm sorry for your loss and the pain. Fill in some of the gaps, because you've obviously gone through huge tragedy, huge loss. I mean, dying, losing a wife at such a young age is obviously has a huge impact on you. What was the time difference between you losing Jodi and then you creating the foundation and doing the work that you've actually done? Like, how did it happen immediately? It was like you've suffered this loss, and this is how you feel you need to invest your energy, or did it take a couple of years, or how did it transpire?
One of the things that I did while Jodi was sick, and I was always sort of into my exercise, and I started to fundraise, and it certainly helped me mentally, physically, and dealing with what we were going through, that opportunity to get out and exercise. And I raised quite a bit of money for the Cancer Council while she was sick. I raised over $100,000 through various, marathons and other events. One of it wasn't the major reason, but certainly one of the contributing factors to going out and setting up the foundation myself was that the Cancer Council at the time couldn't guarantee that all that money was flowing into bowel cancer. And of course, that was what I was passionate about. And I also saw this inequity, despite it being the second biggest cancer killer in this country and so preventable, there was more money flowing from government and Cancer Council and others into things like breast cancer and other diseases, all very worthy causes, but a lack of focus on bowel cancer. So that was one of the drivers. Jodi died in January, and we opened the doors to the foundation in August that same year, back in 2010. So whilst I'd been fundraising and had some success at fundraising, it was in August that same year that I set up the foundation.
Wow. And how has it evolved, the foundation? So you mentioned that it's saved thousands of lives. What is the work that you do? Is it how do you raise awareness of the risks associated with bowel cancer?
So we have a vision of beating this disease, and when you consider that it's highly prevalent but so preventable, up to 99% treatable if you can catch it early. So for us, it's all about early detection. So we're out there trying to teach people how to protect themselves, and we do that across many different vehicles. But the message, we think, is pretty simple, and so. With a vision to beat this disease, we've used the word beat to help people remember what they can do. So the B in beat is be active and healthy. The E is explore your family history. Around 20% of cases have a link to family history. The A is act on symptoms, and the key symptoms to watch out for is blood when you go to the toilet to do a poo, but certainly abdominal pain, bloating, unexplained tiredness are all symptoms to watch out for. And T is take the simple test. So when people turn 50, they get a free test from the government, and for every 2 years they're on to 74. But they're also available from pharmacies. And what we're seeing now is that it's the leading cancer killer in 24 to 35-year-olds. So that surprises a lot of people, because the common perception, like it was for me when Jodi got diagnosed, was that it was an older man's disease, but it's clearly not. And we want younger people to protect themselves, and there's lots they can do to protect themselves. So that's something that we're particularly passionate about. You know, Jodi was 39. We didn't know about bowel cancer. She wouldn't have got a free screening test till she was 50. That was too late. We're really passionate about educating younger people.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So let's kind of move on and start talking about purpose, because clearly something very negative happened, but that inspired you to find purpose, to find something where you've invested so much energy. I guess the question would be, what does finding purpose mean to you now? So when you look back at the last 12 years and everything that you've done and everything that you've achieved, what does finding purpose mean to you? And then the second part of that question is, how can people find purpose? Because I feel that we're at a point now in time where a lot of people are asking some of those big questions, like, what is the purpose of my life? There must be something bigger than, just this. I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Yeah, well, clearly I got a big nudge towards my purpose, but, by losing my wife to bowel cancer. The point that I want to make up front is that you don't need to lose your wife or someone you love, or have a big significant event in your life to find your purpose. I kind of would like your listeners to think that it's like something you go out into the desert and find, or we have this big life event. It's really about starting with living a more purposeful life and leading to a clear sense of purpose. And I'll talk about that. I think initially what helped me through the grief with Jodi was, and this is what I think is at the heart of purpose, is who do we matter to? So I think that's really at the heart of it, is so who do we matter to? Who are we important to? Who do we impact? And for me, that focus was crystal clear. For me, I had two young kids. They were 8 and 6 when Jodi passed away, and they were my main responsibility, and they were my key focus, and they certainly helped me through that grieving process. In fact, I through that process found out that I needed them much more than they needed me. They were wonderfully resilient, independent young people that got on with their lives. But certainly, that was very helpful for me. So I think that's fundamentally at the core of purpose. It is a skill. It is something that needs to be practiced. It is something that you can think about, what is your sense of purpose. And for me, it's sort of about saving lives for preventable disease. So that being bowel cancer and now mental health. But it could be centered around your kids or your grandkids or your work or your hobbies or your other family or friends, whatever it might be. The most useful model I've found for describing how to find that purpose is three elements coming together. So those elements are, what are you passionate about? And often I'll get people to kind of divide a page in two, and on down one side of the page write all the things that enhance their energy and motivation and make them feel good about themselves, and on the other, all the things that detract from that and sap their energy. And that sort of starts to give you a bit of a sense about what you're passionate about and what drives you. The second aspect is, what are you good at? Okay, so these are your strengths and your talents, and these are obviously unique to individuals. So identify the things that you're really good at. And then the third element is, what impact do you want to have? How do you want to contribute in your life? And I think if you draw a diagram with those three circles, the intersection of those three things, those three circles, is where you're going to find your own sense of purpose. But there's lots of things that it's meant for me. I find it difficult to describe how it's impacted me from a fulfillment perspective. It's really been quite extraordinary, and sometimes I feel a little bit guilty about it, because obviously it's come out of tragedy, but I really have been fulfilled by having the opportunity to contribute to others in that way. It's made a big impact in my life. It's allowed me to achieve a lot of things that I never thought were possible. It's helped my well-being. There's research around the fact that purposeful people on average live 7 years longer than others. There's loads of reasons to focus on it. Every day I'm more purposeful. I get out of bed, and I used to say, well, what do I have to do today? I now say, how can I contribute to others today? Rather than saying to my team members, good job for doing something, I explain to them what they've contributed to and how they've contributed to that. So what are their strengths and their passions that have led to something that they've done really well? So, that I think is really, really powerful. And I'd encourage your listeners to try that, because it really does have a strong impact. So there's lots of things that have contributed to my life having or living a more purposeful life, and really having that strong sense of purpose. And I practice it every day, and that's something that I'd encourage others to do, is first of all spend a bit of time thinking about it. And I have the tools from Unilever to think about purpose, because we spent ages strategizing about the purpose of our brands. But I've described a fairly simple tool there. And then really practice it and live it, because it's massively fulfilling.
Just on that point around practicing it and living it. So I feel the tools to really understand what the purpose are very helpful, and that can create a concept in terms of, this is my life purpose. But how would you advise someone to actually practice it every day? Is it through your work, or how does that manifest in your own life?
Well, I think, we are social beasts, so that's sort of ingrained in most of it. So think about the connections that you have with people, and how you can make a difference to that. And I think that's a very, very purposeful way, as I said, sort of reframing your thoughts when you get out of bed in the morning. How are you going to contribute to others today? And that can be large or small. You don't have to save a life every day. It can be manifest in different ways. I also think that we call it, with Healthy Minds, the magic question. If you're in a meeting, for example, a work meeting, and it's going in circles, and people are potentially getting a bit emotional, use a circuit breaker as, what is the most helpful thing that we can do now? Another one that I love is, how can I improve the moment? And if you continually ask yourselves those questions, you're not going to just fly off the handle or be led by your emotions. That is very purposeful, asking those questions, and it's a very easy thing, obviously, for people to do. And so, I think if people can fundamentally think about who they matter to and then how they're going to impact those people in a positive way, that sets you on the road to leading a very purposeful life.
I really like that. What is the most helpful thing you can do now? It's a very good question to ask.
We've all got choices, don't we, at the end of the day? I don't have a choice to bring Jodi back, but I do have a choice about what I do next, despite having gone through what I went through. And we talk about this term in Healthy Minds called optimalism. So it's not about being positive. I don't know about you, but thinking positively hasn't often helped me with real world problems. It's not about being a pessimist, because that's not going to lead you in the right direction. Optimalism is about making the best of the situation that you're in. So despite everything that's gone before you, what is the best thing that you can do now? And I think that's very purposeful.
It is. No, I like that. And that's very aligned with the whole finding equilibrium. Acknowledges that there is a positive and there is there are challenges, and you need to be able to acknowledge those challenges to be able to deal with them and find the solutions. And one more question on purpose, which I'm interested, because a lot of people, when they heard your story and the tragedy and how that led to you finding purpose, do you feel, and I know you said that you don't need a tragedy, you don't need that big thing, you can still find it, but how are you different? Like, if the tragedy didn't happen to you, and prior to that you were working at Unilever and you were working for a company, were you still the type of person who was looking for purpose? Like, would you have landed in this same place had the tragedy not occurred?
I think I would have, Lawrence, because I look back on my life and, I lost a very good friend of mine. This was kind of the first tragic thing that happened in my life. I was playing AFL football with him, and he was a ruckman, and he locked arms with the opposition ruckman, and the other ruckman stayed down, whereas my friend jumped up and he came down on the back of his neck and literally didn't move from that time on. And they did all the right things to get him to hospital in the right way. But unfortunately, a few months after that, he passed away. And that hit me really hard. But I joined a group of much older people to raise money for Rob for his rehabilitation immediately after the accident, and we raised over $1 million. And I just remember, even from a young age, getting this massive sense of fulfillment from that. And so I think it was certainly inside me, and I'm sure it's inside most of your listeners. And then I was lucky enough to work for this incredible company that really does walk the talk. Unilever have been 17 years at the top of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. They've just won this year. Unilever Australia won the best place to BR, I think it was Financial Review, best places to work. So they really did walk the talk. And so spending so long with that organization and spending so much time on identifying purpose, I think, and I loved when we were in Vietnam and, there was floods, and we would send teams of people out for a week to go and help people rebuild their houses. And, we would build play areas for kids under the Omo brand and other things like that. And so, that filled me with this great sense of satisfaction. And so I think I would have found it regardless of losing Jodi, but certainly it was a massive nudge, I guess, is the way I would put it. And I've been able to achieve, I think, so much more in my life as a result of finding that sense of purpose and living a more purposeful life. I call it this moral authority. I love this saying that pursue something so important that even if you fail, the world is better off for you having tried. Right?
I love that. I think that's really great. So when you step back and you look at your life, it's been very interesting. You know, you've had a successful career at Unilever, then a tragedy that inspired you to almost channel your energy in a particular direction, and create the foundation, which has been recognized now publicly, which is amazing. And then you moved into Healthy Minds. So just tell us how that has developed. Why Healthy Minds? Where does that fit in with the foundation and the purpose that you focus on with your life?
I guess my changing career took me into preventative health. You know, for Jodi Lee Foundation, we're all about preventing bowel cancer, and I fell in love with preventative health. I just felt like we could, I could use my skills and strengths to kind of help people in that way. And one of our main initiatives, and there may be some corporate listeners out there that are interested in this, June is Bowel Cancer Month, and we run a workplace program to educate employees about how to protect their staff. So I'll come in and give a presentation, and we have screening tests and other materials that we use to ensure that people act on the messages that we leave them with through that program. And so I got to build up this big network of corporates through that program and understand corporate health. And I met my now business partner, Dr. Tom Nemi, around 6 years ago. And he had to develop this world first program. He did a 4-year PhD at Flinders University here in South Australia. And after a fairly robust trial, found a prevention effect for anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. And that got published in a global peer-reviewed journal as a world first. And he then took that program into schools. And when I met Tom, I said, look, Tom, corporates are screaming out for this. We need to get this into corporates. So I was blown away by listening to him teach these psychological skills that are largely unknown, for his patients that had come into his clinical practice prior to doing his PhD. And so we partnered up and we co-developed the corporate program, and now that is about 80% of our business. And so my world is busy with the Jodi Lee Foundation and now Healthy Minds, getting out to corporates and trying to educate staff around these really important aspects. So they fit really nicely, and actually there's a strong connection between gut and mental health, as I later found out. So, whether it be preventative health, whether it be a strong purpose in terms of contributing to others, whether it be the link between gut health and mental health, there's lots of synergies between, this change in career and my continued focus in this preventative space.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm very passionate about preventative health because it feels it's a lot less painful focusing on preventative measures than on the cure. But what you touch on is that holistic nature of people, and you see those interconnections between the mind and the gut. They are so linked, and there's more and more science that really supports that, which is fascinating, I have to say. Okay, so we're almost out of time, but one question I ask everybody is, this podcast is called Finding Equilibrium. It's all about finding balance. But what does that mean to you? What does finding equilibrium mean to you?
Well, I think for me, there's a number of elements that I try and balance in my life, and that is the relationships that I have with my family and friends, and that's really important, and that's very protective from a mental health perspective as well. I try and do the right thing and get the right balance in terms of nutrition. So I sort of be a bit careful about what I eat. And of course, I'm out there consistently preaching to people the importance of nutrition and diet and lifestyle factors. So, I want to practice what I preach, and I want to lead by example. Exercise is really important to me. That's a key factor in getting balance for myself. It's a wonderful way for me to discharge stress and rebalance. I feel like I've learned quite a lot of psychological skills to help me find balance through my work with Healthy Minds as well. Of course, you want to find a bit of balance around social activities. So, you know, a lot of those for me revolve around sport, but also socializing. You know, I love playing tennis. I love playing golf. I love getting out with my friends. You know, I know we call them the life medicines at Healthy Minds. What are those things that help you discharge stress? So obviously exercise is one, but water is another for me. So getting down to the beach helps. And then having this strong sense of purpose. So they're probably the 6 factors that when you talk to me about equilibrium for Nick Lee, that's the things that I come back to. How do I build out each of those elements to find my optimum equilibrium? And so they're all aspects that immediately come to mind for, you know, answering that question.
So one question, Nick, I'd like to ask you is, what is the impact of finding purpose on your own well-being? We've mentioned that before, but I'm interested if there are any statistics that highlight the impact of purpose on well-being and also on engagement, because we're at a point now where many of us are looking for purpose, looking for something bigger than ourselves, and our work often fills that gap. I'm curious if you have any insights to share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked before about the fact that, you know, research shows that if you live a purposeful life, on average, you live 7 years longer. So that's reason enough. But you talked about engagement, and other research shows that 87% of Australian workers are not engaged. And when you consider that 35% of our working life is spent in the office or at work, there's this massive opportunity. And other studies show that when people believe that their work matters, they are 4 times more likely to be engaged. They're more motivated, they learn faster, and they're more fulfilled. So there's this growing bank of evidence that is suggesting that this is a really important aspect of people's well-being and worthy of focusing on, obviously, for that reason.
That's great. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So where can people find out more about the foundation, about Healthy Minds, about the work you're doing? I'm assuming LinkedIn, but do you have a website as well?
Yeah, so there's I'm on LinkedIn. Love people to connect with me over LinkedIn, Facebook, but we also have the Jodi Lee Foundation, JODI Foundation. So Google that. You can see our events, you can see our key messages, you can see the activities that we're doing out in the community to make a difference. And Healthy Minds is healthymindsprogram.com. So again, have a look at that. Lots of wonderful work that we're doing with schools and corporates, and we just we're very buoyed by the feedback that we get from participants that go through our program. So we love it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Nick. Let me acknowledge you for all the work that you've done, are doing, and continue to do. So thank you so much for the impact you've had, and congratulations again on getting the Order of Australia medal. That's like a huge achievement, and it's wonderful to get that external validation of the energy that you've invested over many years. So thank you so much, Nick. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next time. Thank you.